Hey everyone, hope you guys are enjoying Monster Hunter in whichever fashion you're choosing to play it as. And today I wanted to go over the latest massive news that we have for Monster Hunter Now, as the latest version 65 patch has gone ahead and dropped and not only added some brand new quality of life improvements that the game has been desperately needed, but it also made some very quick and basic adjustments to probably one of the weakest weapons in the game in the Great Sword. Based off of some recent tier lists that I've seen kind of pop around all over social media, it seems like the Great Sword has been one of the most talked about weapons in general when it comes to Monster Hunter Now, as being not necessarily too consistent with the damage, therefore it not being considered a top tier weapon. Well, it seems like Niantic and Capcom seemingly agree with what players have been saying regarding the Great Sword, so they've made some very basic changes to see where it is that it ends up at the end of the day. So not only do I want to go over pretty much the latest patch notes, also on the back end of the video I want to discuss something very quickly regarding the game in general as a whole and the mood that I've seen kind of change around this game completely. But more importantly, I'm going to be leaving a link in the description below for the patch notes if you haven't necessarily checked them out, and the patch should be applicable already if your game instantly updates once you boot it up. You should have it already available, but for those who manually update, you should be able to go ahead and do that now. I don't think there's any actual connection changes or anything like that that you need to do, but at the end of the day, you should probably be playing with the latest version of the game, which is now version 0.65. First and foremost, they mentioned that there's a new sorting system for the weapons. They mentioned that as you tap the icon in the bottom right to access those sorting and filtering options in the weapons list on the equipment. So basically what you need to know there is that you can now sort your weapons on a whim. You don't necessarily need to be stuck with the presets that you had set up or anything along those lines, but now you can sort those out at any way you want. You can arrange the weapons by grade or attack power as well. So basically the most powerful weapons will be tiered on top, or basically the grade that you have. The high rarity, of course, means higher grade. So basically the weapons you've kind of spent materials on, and the ones that you've powered up, those should be the one that show up first. They also mentioned the filter quickly narrowed down your selection by weapon types as elementals or favorites. Now, a lot of people were already setting up favorites as is. I think that's the best way that you were able to sort out all your equipment options, but now you can do by weapon type, element, and or favorite. So you don't have to necessarily rely on the favorites option any longer. They also mentioned that you can now use your favorites feature on the overgrade equipment screen, which is, again, something that you should be able to do relatively easy, and it makes things a bit faster. You can also now switch between the story and special quest with horizontal swipes. So whenever you're choosing a quest or anything along those lines, those options should be coming a little bit faster. But when it comes to the actual weapon changes and the fixed issues tab, they mentioned that the Great Sword strong wide slash damage was not correct. Essentially, it was not working properly. They've gone ahead and addressed that. Now, they don't necessarily say if it's been made more powerful or weaker, but of course, most likely it seems like, at the very least, based on the rest of the patch notes for the Great Sword, it seems like it has been boosted a little better, at the very least, because it wasn't working correctly. Now that it's supposed to be working correctly, the damage should be appropriated, and it means more DPS. Great Sword's true charge slash damage at the charge level 3 was also not correct. So a lot of players who were charging up their true charge slash were not getting the proper damage. Now going forward, they should be able to do that. And just like the strong wide slash, again, a correction of damage means a boost at the end of the day because it just simply wasn't working properly. They also mentioned that the Great Swords during the charge slash specific action triggers knockbacks or knockdown effects basically weren't active. So again, a knockback or a knockdown that simply should just have been applied instantly now will be done so because for whatever reason they overlooked those things. So these are three basic, I think, improvements to the Great Sword with the wide slash to true charging at level 3, which, you know, a lot of players, I don't know if they're able to race it to level 3 before they can get it off, but at the end of the day, you certainly want to charge it about as much as possible. And then some knockback and knockdowns being added, or at the very least adjusted for it to work properly as well. They also mentioned that the incorrect rendering of the back view of the Kadachi coil armor has been fixed. So of course some armor adjustments there, but not that it means a boost or anything, it's just so it renders properly. They also mentioned that item purchase notifications in the web store is missing the description of special carving knives. Now it's funny that they're even willing to mention this, because at the top of their patch notes they mentioned that not all changes will be showcased in the patch notes, yet they're willing to talk about special carving knives. I made 2 separate videos already talking about just the toxic monetization of Niantic's application of this game, the way that they're handling it, and special carving knives specifically were part of one of my videos that I spoke about. A lot of people had a lot of things to say when it came to the way that they're handling monetization in this game, specifically when it comes to the carving knives. And I'm not necessarily sure why they're now touting that, you know, web store notifications. It's just leave that as off the patch notes if you can, Niantic, going forward. People don't want to hear about that because they're constantly reminded that they're basically being taken advantage of. In the next note, they mentioned that in areas away from the paths of the map, monsters and small gathering points, you should only appear within the access circle. However, due to screen transitions, they are erroneously appearing outside of access circles. Now, there's an ongoing issue that I've seen a lot of players mention as of late when it comes to a map display, where essentially the map doesn't necessarily display all the things that need to be showed off there. Some things are either transparent, or they just simply showcase as like empty. For whatever reason. I don't necessarily know if that's going to be addressing that as of right now. The information is not complete, and these patch notes don't necessarily explain all that, but they do mention that outside of range, so maybe at the end of the day that does seem to adjust that issue. But I have seen that prop up more than once when it comes to the map, just simply after combat or some random engagement, not necessarily showcasing everything that you saw before the prior engagement that you went into. When you came back out, the map looks a little bit different and it looks incomplete. So hopefully this addresses some of that at the very least, or if Niantic already knows about it, they go ahead and address it. They also mentioned that when breaking Anjanath's parts, there is an issue where Anjanath stands still for a short period and becomes unresponsive. So they've basically gone ahead and adjusted that as well. Lastly, in the mitigated issues section, they mentioned that they have addressed the following issues, but if you encounter any problems, even after upgrading to the latest version, please let them know. There is a link in the description below, again, for the patch notes, but they also have one there if you want to contact them. But you can also do that through the in-game report system as well, and you should be able to report any of these if you come across them. The SP skills may not be available. That is the first thing that they talk about here. So basically, if for whatever reason you feel like you should have more, or they should have not been used, obviously report that. App may force close unexpectedly. Now this is just a typical error crash situation. They don't necessarily tell you as to what could be potentially causing it, but of course that usually happens right after patches until they address it, or stability issues or whatever the case is. So hopefully that gets addressed. And lastly, they mentioned that invisible monsters during a group hunt. Now this I've seen several people also talk about as well, kind of like alongside that map thing that I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, where sometimes they just get into a fight and the monster just seems transparent. You see the kind of like how do I say this, the like movements of the monster, because the camera will continually shift, so the monster is clearly there. You can attack it, you can hit it, you see damage markers and all of that, but there's actually no rendered monster appearing on the screen as well. There might have been a little glitch video that I saw, it might have been on TikTok or something like that, of someone clearly engaging with one of them, and there's been multiple reports of that as well. So it's not that a monster is just not appearing, it's that just for whatever reason it just didn't properly render, in the same way that the map sometimes doesn't properly load after you kind of get finished up with a specific engagement. But that is the patch notes that we have seen right now that are currently live in the game. Again, if your game is automatically updating, you should already have them version 6.5 or 65, or if you manually are updating your game, that you should be able to do that to have online access. Now, one of the things that I do want to very quickly mention, because this video is already too long as is that a lot of people have been kind of getting tired of the game. I've seen a lot of people saying that they're going to wait for the December patch, and if that doesn't necessarily bring a lot of new content, they're probably going to stop playing in general. I kind of feel that sentiment. I've made my feelings well known for this game already as is. I don't want to beat that drum again, if you will, or get back into that conversation of, just not necessarily I'm having too much fun with the game, because I'm not. But it does seem like more and more people are kind of just waiting for the December update. And if it doesn't necessarily deliver, which again, we have some information on what's going to be showcasing there. We have the information regarding the 4 new weapons, the 16 new monsters, a lot of quality of life improvements, a lot of new items, a lot of armor pieces. All of that I went over on my channel, link in the description below if you don't necessarily know those details. But a lot of people still, at the end of the day, are saying they're kind of just waiting for the December update, and they're going to stop playing throughout all of November and wait to see what happens. So I think Niantic probably needs to step it up a little bit. If the December update doesn't quite deliver, probably they're going to start seeing a lot of people flee, because at the end of the day, mobile games just require updates continually, and if they're not being delivered, or at the very least delivered properly and fast, people just kind of step away, because there's just so many options for games at the end of the day. But that's about all the information that I have for you guys today. If you're brand new to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up. And as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.